Hello everybody, Jonathan Fox here with the Fox Group, and welcome to a new episode of the Real Talk Real Estate Show. I am down here at the Tidal Basin. I've got gorgeous cherry blossoms behind me, the Washington Monument. I know we've had a tough winter, but honestly, just looking back, you could not tell that there was anything going on here. They are in full bloom. If you haven't had a chance to get down, I highly recommend it. I understand there's lots of tourists, lots of activity going on, but at the end of the day, this is one of those treats that we get every year here in Washington, D.C., so I hope you take some time to check this out. But in today's episode, what we're really going to talk about is, now that we're in the spring market and things are in full bloom, as you can see, the differences between buying and renting. A lot of real estate transactions are getting ready to happen in the next few months, and if you're sitting there on the fence renting that apartment, I want to talk to you about the differences between owning and renting. So why don't we jump right in? I want to start by saying moving sucks. Don't you agree? Moving sucks. I don't care if you're getting your buddies to help you load up the truck or you're spending $2,000 and $3,000 hiring professional movers. Either way, you're taking time off work, you're spending your money to actually move, you're taking the mental bandwidth to pack, to unpack, to get settled, unsettled. I mean, it is a process in itself. And when you rent, you have a couple fundamental choices. You get typically a year or two long lease. And guess what, folks? At the end of that year lease, there is a 3 to 9% average increase in rent coming, right? So they got you. What choice do you have? If you don't want to go through that headache of moving, well, you're spending a ton more money on rent the next year just to stay put in the same place. And let's be honest with ourselves here. Washington, D.C. ranks in the top 5 most expensive rental markets in the country already, and the average apartment in Washington, D.C. costs right around $2,000, and that includes our suburbs, by the way. I'm talking about anything inside the Beltway. So moving to Arlington versus D.C. versus Bethesda, you're not going to save much money by going in between the three. So no matter what you end up doing, you're going to spend a ton of money on rent, and that rent just continues to go up. And there's a funny meme about that. The rent is too damn high. We'll post it later. But anyway, fully agree with that. So that is the first point. Moving sucks. If you rent, you are constantly moving every year or two. The second thing I'll bring up, the equity and tax credits that you will gain by owning versus the simple rental increases that you're going to get by renting. Let me explain. At the end of the year, you can deduct a large portion of your mortgage interest payment on your tax returns, which equates, depending on the size of your mortgage and all of that, to many thousands of dollars potentially come tax seasons that you will actually get back in your pocket, right? So by renting, you don't have any tax incentive. It's as if you're just writing a check and throwing it away. Yeah, sure, you get a place to live. I'm not saying there's no advantage to renting at all, but the tax credits alone make homeownership a much more appealing proposition. And on the other side, you are also building equity with each and every single payment that you make on that mortgage. So when you're going about purchasing a property, there are costs up front, but guess what? Every payment you make after that is going to go towards paying down that principal balance on that mortgage. So in a couple years' time, even if the property hasn't appreciated whatsoever, you still have built-in equity that your hard-earned money that used to be going to rent is now going into the mortgage that is ultimately paying down that balance, and you're going to reap the benefit of it. And there's a lot of tips and tricks that we can talk about, and we've talked about in other episodes to minimize the amount of mortgage interest you're paying so you can actually apply more towards principal balance and ultimately gain more equity in your property. But listen, tax credits and equity equal money, wealth, cash, all good things if you're talking about financial health. Where renting, you get no tax incentive and you certainly don't get any deductions for it at the end of the year or equity, anything like that. So there's another huge difference. I'll bring up one last point. Listen, rents go up year over year. In Washington, D.C., I just mentioned we live in one of the top 5 most expensive rental markets. Well, guess what? Every single year, apartment companies are continually pushing the boundaries of how much rent they're going to charge. And that's not going away. Good market, bad market, the cost of living will continue to rise. Therefore, the cost of housing will continue to go up. So if you're stuck renting for a long period of time, you're stuck continually keeping up pace with the cost of living in this area. Whereas if you purchase a property, not only do you not have to move at the end of the next year or two or pay an increase, but you also freeze, like a moment in time, the price you paid for that property. So as the cost of living goes up, your mortgage payment doesn't go up. That's fixed. Your interest rate doesn't go up as long as you got a fixed loan. Therefore, that's fixed, meaning that $2,000 mortgage payment that you just locked in is going to remain $2,000 until you're either paying the place off or sell it or refinance or some other thing. But if you have a $2,000 rental payment, that $2,000 rental payment at 5% more is going to be more like $2,100 the next year, and so on and so forth. So it's the fact that your rent will continue to go up and your mortgage payment won't. So you're going to get tax credits, you're going to build equity, you're going to have a steady place to live where you're not moving, but ultimately you are going to freeze that moment in time. And that, my friends, is how you build stability and wealth. If your housing costs are fixed, right? Think about that. They are fixed for 30 years or until you get tired of the place. Ultimately, you can plan for that on a month in and month out basis and plan around that and start to really build that wealth. So obviously, I'm in real estate. My job is to promote home ownership because I truly believe in this. Listen, if you have the means to do so, and it's one of the biggest misconceptions that I think I run into with all first-time home buyers, is that the barriers to own are actually nearly as low in today's world as renting an apartment, meaning you need income, you need a steady job. Well, you need that to rent a place usually too. You need a source of funds, which you need a security deposit for an apartment. Well, you need a down payment, but there are many loan programs now that down payments are as little as 3%. So the barrier to get into a property has never been easier. And interest rates are so darn low right now. So if you just run them both out, you need cash for both, you need income for both. Typically a mortgage payment is less than rents anyway. There's lots of data on that. But ultimately, what you're able to do is take your hard-earned money, start building wealth with it. The barriers to get in have never been lower in many respects, at least since the Great Recession. And the interest rates are so excellent. So when you look at it, I talk to folks all the time that bought 3, 4, 5 years ago. Well, guess what? Since the bottom of our market, on average. Okay folks, sorry, that's a funny thing. I got back to the office and realized that the microphone I was wearing actually ran out of batteries with about a minute left in that video. So I'm going to finish it right here in my office. What I was trying to say is that over the last couple years, prices on average in the Washington, D.C. area have gone up nearly 25%, which means simply this. If you bought a house in 2010 and ran that forward by just making your payments, forgetting all of the other benefits I just mentioned, you've actually built wealth for living in your home. There is nothing comparable to that in any other asset, because not only do you have money that you're allocating towards that asset that is gaining in appreciation, but you also get to move in and live in it and enjoy it. You can't move into a stock, you can't move into a bond, you can't move into a startup, you can't move into anything, but everyone needs a place to live. So homeownership, if all you're trying to do is find a place to park your money at the end of the day, that's a great investment. So listen, I'm going to tie this all together and then get out of here. Homeownership provides stability, a vehicle in which you can actually plan for, build wealth, stop taking your time and your energy dealing with increases or moving, create stability, and ultimately put you in an asset that is not only appreciating, but you can live in, enjoy, build families, memories. There's just so much about it that just goes far beyond the financial benefits. If you have any questions about this or have more questions about your specific situation, listen, send me an email, info@thefoxgroupdc.com, where I'm happy to answer any of your questions. You can always use the hashtag AskJohnFox. Your questions will always be featured on this show. So that's it for today's episode dealing with homeownership. Again, get down to the cherry blossoms. They were gorgeous. Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you again next time.